Hello and welcome to what is likely going to be the last episode ever of Wrenches, Gadgets, and Hacks. And you know why? Our AI overlords, or underlords if you're using Descript, have come for our jobs. Believe it or not, they are that good. And with that being said, John, myself, are here to just say thank you and to let you hear one last episode that was completely generated by AI. Have a listen.
Okay, so welcome to the deep dives. Today we're diving into the 100 Days of AI challenge, but through the lens of one participant, the BIMsider. You provided their really comprehensive blog post covering all three phases, along with their initial kind of thoughts on microlearning that got them into it in the first place. So today we're going to extract the most valuable insights, the key AI tools, and those learning frameworks they adopted over those 100 days of AI immersion. Think of it like a shortcut to a real-world AI learning experience and kind of what it could mean for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're focusing specifically on the BIMsider's journey, meticulously chronicled, in their blog post from early 2024. They gave like a day-by-day account of how they interacted with AI, the tools, their evolving perspective. It's a gold mine.
Yeah. And for you, the learner, this deep dive is designed to be immediately, beneficial. Whether you're thinking about your own AI journey or maybe looking for guidance on what AI tools are worth exploring, or even just curious about the structure and the dedication involved in a focused learning program. We're going to distill those critical takeaways from the BIMsider's 100-day adventure. Basically, their experience turned into actionable insights for you. So let's unpack it all, starting with the basic structure of the challenge itself in phase one.
Yeah, so the 100 Days of AI challenge, from what the BIMsider tells us, works by sending a daily email, each containing a task that should take about 30 minutes to complete. But what's really interesting is it's not just exercises every single day for 100 days straight. The organizers actually incorporated rest days, reflection days, prep days, even inspirational days, so that's nice to see. And phase one was all about laying those AI foundations.
Yeah, and before day one even kicked off, the BIMsider got 2 prep emails loaded with tips and resources. They even had an AI primer, which I think is really useful for anyone just starting out, especially because it came with an AI jargon buster that linked to a Time article, the A to Z of artificial intelligence. Those kinds of resources I think are really helpful, just to kind of demystify it all for people.
Right. Having a solid foundation with clear definitions is so key. Then day one really emphasized that public commitment. Participants were encouraged to share their progress daily, like on X, with that hashtag 100 days OFAI hashtag. Now, this obviously, increases visibility, but the BIMsider noted that it's the personal accountability that makes it really valuable.
Oh, totally. Knowing you've publicly said, I'm doing this, can be a great motivator. Now, statistically speaking, phase one, days 1 through 13, was pretty short. It was only 10 exercise days and 3 non-exercise days. Even in the foundation phase, there was breathing room.
Right, exactly. And what's striking is that they introduced a bunch of AI tools right off the bat. You have the big names like ChatGPT from OpenAI, Instant Answers, Creative Sparks, Learning Aid, that kind of thing. But there was also this crucial piece of advice: double check anything important from ChatGPT because it can make mistakes.
Yeah, no, that's super important. It's a tool, not the final word. Then you've got Zapier for automation. Think of the time they can save, and Otter for meeting transcripts and summaries. I mean, huge time saver. And the BIMsider seemed really impressed with Ask CSV for dealing with CSV files.
Ask CSV was a standout because it, visually presents information from those files. That makes exploring data way more intuitive, especially if you're not, a data scientist. Other tools included Glide, which is for building custom business software without coding, so no code, essentially, and Guide, an AI platform for quickly creating video documentation. And there's Chat PDF, which is like asking questions of PDF documents, kind of similar to Ask CSV, but without the visuals.
That's a lot of tools for the first 13 days. It wasn't just tools, though. Phase one also introduced some AI frameworks.
Yeah. Participants learned basic ChatGPT prompting, essentially, how to ask good questions to get the answers you want. Building on that was the PRP framework. It's a 4-step process for more targeted and effective prompts. Prompt, role, explicit instruction, and parameters gives you a real methodology for getting the most out of your AI interactions.
And then they introduced the mega prompt, which is basically writing longer prompts with a lot of detail and context. The goal is to really guide the AI, give it a clear understanding of what you want. So phase one was really focused on that foundational understanding of how to interact effectively with AI models.
Exactly. And the BIMsider had 3 key takeaways from phase one. First, they got a much deeper understanding of how to really optimize those ChatGPT prompts for better results. They recommended checking out LLM prompting, which is a free resource for building those prompt templates. LLM stands for large language model, by the way, which is what powers a lot of these text-based tools.
Oh, that's great. A bonus tip for anyone who really wants to refine their AI communication. The second takeaway was how easily they could get information from CSV files visually with Ask CSV. They even recommended Mockaroo as a tool for generating test CSV data, which is really helpful for just messing around.
And the third big takeaway was the usefulness of Chat PDF. So being able to ask questions of PDF documents, it's like Ask CSV, but for PDFs, you know? So phase one laid the groundwork by introducing, those core AI interaction techniques and these tools for different data formats, getting comfortable with the basics.
Yeah, so phase one was all about the fundamentals. But phase two, as the BIM Cider called it, was learn the most versatile AI use cases. Sounds like taking those skills and applying them.
Yeah, phase two was all about that. It covered days 14 through 40. It was about diving deep into those common AI use cases across 5 different tracks.
And this was a busier phase, right? The stats show 21 exercise days and 6 non-exercise days in those 27 days.
It was definitely more focused. And it was organized into those 5 tracks, each followed by a rest day. AI art, AI marketing, AI sales, AI augmentor, which was about using AI for personal productivity,
Right.
the AI creator for, content creation. That's a great range to explore, right?
And the AI tools, oh boy, they really expanded in this phase. We saw some old friends like ChatGPT and Zapier, but a bunch of new tools as well.
Yeah, the range of tools was really interesting. For AI art, the BIM Cider tried out Image Creator from Designer, which is part of Microsoft Copilot. Then there was Distillery by Follow Fox, Pika for short videos, Cassette AI and Genmo for various generative art stuff, and Adobe Firefly, which they really liked. And for the other tracks, there was Memento AI for AI avatars, Trigger for no-code web apps, OpenAI API for more direct AI interaction, and Gamma for AI presentations, and of course, Exa and Perplexity, both of which are AI search engines with source citations. Then there were writing tools like Pseudowrite, this really specific tool called Checklit4, like polishing jokes, chatbot platforms like VoiceFlow, and even tools for video and audio like Runway and 11 Labs, or Replit, a coding platform, even made an appearance.
Wow, it's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it, trying to keep up with all these tools?
Yeah.
It shows just how fast things are changing, and how many different ways AI is being used. Did phase two introduce any new frameworks, or was it mostly applying the old ones?
The pre-prep framework from phase one definitely came back, reinforcing its importance. But they also introduced dynamic prompting. This is a 6-element framework, actually developed by Linus Eckenstam, specifically for controlling how AI generates images. The elements are subject, acting, style, place, time of day, and photographic equipment. So it gets very specific,
That's so cool. It's almost like you're directing a movie, giving super detailed instructions to the AI. So the BIM Cider highlighted their top 5 takeaways from phase 2. What were the big aha moments for them?
The first big one was the concept of the AI sandwich, which came up on day 28. It's a metaphor for like a collaborative workflow between humans and AI. Think about a sandwich. The top bread is the human touch, the filling is the AI-generated content, and the bottom bread is the human refinement. It nicely illustrates this idea of a balanced partnership,
I love that. Makes it feel like a team effort, not just letting the AI do everything. What else did the BIM Cider find really useful?
Chip was a big one. It came up on day 24. It's a no-code platform where you can build custom chatbots using the OpenAI API. The BIM Cider actually built a Dad Joke 9000 chatbot with Chip, which is pretty funny. It shows just how easy it can be, although you do need an OpenAI account and an API token. So yeah, building your own custom AI tools, even without being a coder, is becoming a real possibility.
Oh, that's awesome. Really brings that whole idea to life.
Another one was Perplexity. They used it on day 31. It's an AI-powered search engine, but it doesn't just answer your questions, it cites its sources, which is so important. Think of it like a research assistant. And it has a Chrome extension and a mobile app, too. The BIM Cider found the free version to be more than enough for their needs.
That sounds super helpful, especially if you actually want to know where the information is coming from.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's Pseudowrite, which was explored on day 35. It's for writers. Think of it like an AI writing partner that can help you generate ideas, maybe explore different storylines, or even just refine your writing style. It's not free, but it has a trial based on credits, so you can try it out.
Oh, that could be great for writers who get stuck sometimes.
Absolutely. And the last big takeaway was voice flow. It's from day 36. It's a platform where you can build AI chatbots using a visual programming interface, so again, pretty low code. The cool thing is it can handle voice interactions and integrates knowledge bases from different sources. It makes it really versatile, and they have free and paid plans.
Oh, wow. So you can really build some pretty sophisticated stuff with that. And I remember the BIM gave an honorable mention to Adobe Firefly. That was their favorite AI art generator from Phase 2. It seems like Phase 2 was a deep dive into those real-world applications of AI, exposing participants to this like huge variety of tools and really solidifying those prompting skills in different contexts.
It really was. They went beyond the basics and saw how AI could be used in their work and their creative projects.
Okay, so we've laid the foundation, explored those use cases. Now we come to Phase 3. Apply your AI skills to real-world problems. This sounds like the big test.
Exactly. Phase 3 was the longest part of the challenge, running from day 41 all the way to day 100. It started with what they called catch-up, rest, and prep week. That was days 41 to 49. I gave people time to absorb everything from the first 2 phases. They even included shots of inspiration, like success stories from the 100 Days of No Code Challenge, which was run by the same organizers. It's a nice way to get people motivated.
Yeah, that's smart. Show people what's possible, when you put in the work. Also, there was an opt-out clause mentioned in the day 43 email. So if anyone didn't want to do the Phase 3 missions, they could opt out. It's good to have that option.
Yeah, definitely. Then came the core of Phase 3, which was days 50 to 89. That's where you had those 6 distinct missions, each focused on applying those AI and no-code skills. So like real-world scenarios. Let's break down each mission and their key takeaways.
Mission 1 focused on research and development, specifically for a mental health app startup for university students. The BIM used ZenFetch and ChatGPT 3.5 to build a proof of concept. What was the main takeaway there?
The big takeaway was that even with AI's help, research is still research. AI can speed things up, but you still have to do the investigating, analyzing, and validating. No shortcuts.
Mission 2 shifted to lead management. The goal was to help a startup manage their leads using AI and no-code tools. The BIM used Rows, which is like a souped-up spreadsheet with AI, and Makaru for generating data. So what were the key learnings there?
They really found that Rows was amazing for collaboration and efficiency. It's a spreadsheet that has AI and automation built right in, so you can analyze and share information much faster. AI really enhancing those traditional workflows.
Mission 3 was all about community engagement. The challenge was to create a platform for a small town called Greenwood. BIM used a lot of tools for this one. Replit for a basic website, ChatGPT 3.5, and Gemini Advanced for content, and even integrated Google Sheets with SheetDB, which is a no-code API. And then they used Form Ranger and Zapier for automation. It was a real tech stack.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts there. The big takeaway was how useful SheetDB was for turning a Google Sheet into a JSON API. So that means you can update a web app without needing to actually code really powerful no-code stuff.
Mission 4 was about marketing innovation. The goal was to leverage AI for marketing campaigns for this fictitious architecture firm called Non-Common Design. They used ChatGPT 3.5, Pi, which is called an emotionally intelligent AI, and Gemini Advanced, then Copy.ai for content, and even Adobe Firefly and Dell E3 for visuals. A lot going on there.
The standout tools in this one were Pi and Copy.ai. Pi was really helpful for brainstorming, it felt more collaborative. And Copy.ai was great for quickly creating marketing copy, even setting up automated emails.
That's impressive. Mission 5 was more open-ended, all about going from entrepreneurial idea to prototype. The challenge was to create a prototype for an idea. The BIM used 6 different LMs for brainstorming, and they ended up building an AI recipe generator app called Recipe Find and Chat using web technologies, the Spinacular API, and some coding help from Gemini Advanced and Pi.
The big lesson here was this idea of ask and ask again when you're working with AI. Basically refining your questions, giving clearer instructions, even trying different AIs to get the result you want, especially when you're doing something like coding that might be outside your comfort zone.
And lastly, Mission 6 focused on portfolio creation. The goal was to build a portfolio that shows off everything learned in the challenge. The BIM considered using a no-code website builder, but ended up using Pi to code a custom one. So what was the takeaway there?
It reinforced that ask and ask again approach. Even when you have some experience, you might still need to refine your prompts, evaluate the results and tweak things to get that perfect outcome.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Phase 3 was really where the rubber met the road. The BIM even included a list of all the AI and no-code tools they used throughout the challenge. A very handy resource.
Definitely a great overview of what's out there. They also compiled a list of AI frameworks and mindsets, some taught directly, some more implied. Things like agency mindset, growth mindset, building in public, sharing mindset, design thinking, minimum viable test, the jobs to be done framework. It wasn't just about tools, but how to approach problems and learning.
Okay, and as we wrap up this exploration of the BIMsiders' 100 Days of AI, let's look at their overall thoughts on the experience. They divided it into the good, the bad, and the reflection.
Under the good, they were really happy with how much they learned in just 30 minutes a day. They also loved discovering all those AI tools and resources, and they were a big fan of the microlearning format.
And what about the downsides? The bad, as they called it.
They thought there were too many reflection days, and they wanted more tutorials or examples in the Phase 3 missions, like a little more guidance. But they also acknowledge how much work goes into creating all that content, those emails and missions.
Yeah, for sure. So overall, in the reflection, what did they conclude?
They said the good outweighed the bad by far. They'd even do it again. And in fact, they're planning on doing the 100 Days of No Code Challenge next. They also pointed out that the organizers really value feedback, so that's great. And they had one recommendation for anyone doing both challenges. Start with no code, then do AI.
So there you have it. Through this deep dive into one person's experience, we've gotten a real sense of what the 100 Days of AI Challenge is all about. We've explored tons of AI tools for everything from creative work to data analysis to automation. And we've learned about some really valuable frameworks, not just for prompting AI, but for approaching learning in general. It really shows that consistent, focused effort, even just 30 minutes a day, can make a huge difference. And the best part is there are so many resources available now, making AI accessible to everyone.
Exactly. This is a real-world example of how anyone can learn about AI in a practical way. The structure, the variety of tools, the progression from basics to applications, it can all be a source of inspiration, no matter your technical skills. Those aha moments and tips shared by the BIMsider show that even something as complex as AI can be learned in bite-sized pieces if you're willing to experiment and put in the time.
And on that note, here's our final thought for you. Thinking about all these AI advancements and those no-code tools we've been talking about, what's a challenge maybe in your work or personal life that you could tackle by dedicating even a small amount of time to learning and experimenting? Because as we've seen, the possibilities are huge and they're only getting bigger.
Well, what'd you think? Pretty good job, right? That was created by a little tool called NotebookLM. And well, this being our last episode may have been a bit of a joke. If you're not sure what date this came out on, have a look. It was the 1st of April. But the NotebookLM functionality, the NotebookLM tool, which is free, it's from our friends at Google, is no joke. Have you had a chance to take a look at this, John? Have you done any deep dives or any dives at all into what Notebook can do or NotebookLM?
Yeah, so I've only experimented with it based on what you've sent me. So I haven't actually toyed around in it a lot, but seeing this podcast that you sent over, uh, it being generated the way it is kind of blows my mind that that's where we are now. So it's just crazy to me. I mean, I have a copy of my voice in Descript that's AI that I've had for a little while, but I've never used it to make a whole podcast or a whole video. I use it to edit clips, but seeing something get generated with two people having a conversation and having sidebars is just nuts. It's just so crazy to me.
It is crazy how good it does it. And again, if for those of you that actually went through and listened to the podcast, well, the content, the 100 Days of AI, I apologize for that, but it is for an upcoming a session that I'm doing. May be something you've heard before. The way that it was presented, I think, was pretty cool. And with that in mind, for those of you that are watching us on the YouTube channel, let me go ahead and actually share and show you what this looks like. All right. So you should see on the screen something that says something similar to NotebookLM. This is the product. You can see I've been experimenting. We do have some notebooks that already exist. And for those of you listening, there's 5 notebooks with different names, different colors, some lovely little emojis, all automated through the system. But the one that you just listened to was Microlearning 100 Days of AI. And so if I click on this, one of the really cool things about the way this platform works is that it's working on the data that you give it. So you can see that this particular piece was generated from 4 blog posts that I did on the BIMsider blog post. And if you click add source, this is where you can bring in content. So you can see you can just copy and paste simple text. You can add links to websites. You can also link YouTube. Now, the YouTube function is really cool. You don't need to do anything like translate or transcribe. You simply put in a link. I've tested this with a 90-minute video on IFC 4.3. Exciting stuff. But it actually transcribed the entire 90-minute video in about 2 minutes. Then it takes the text from the transcription and does all the things that it does, as well as the ability to click on generate a podcast. And it created about a 20-minute podcast that recapped that entire video. And you can also see we can hook it up to your Google Drive and bring in Google Drives and slides. So you control the content. That's the really cool piece about this, is that you get to control what comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see in the middle, you'll have something that you're used to anytime you've used an LM, which is that chat interface. And here you can actually ask it questions like, what type of AI tools did this cover that talks, I'm putting air quotes here, even though I'm typing, to things like PDFs, CSVs, Word docs, etc. This is enthralling podcasting, by the way. And then you just click the button, and just like ChatGPT or Gronk or whatever you're using, it goes through and gives you an answer. But the cool thing is that it answers all of the different products, and there's 8 or 10 that it came up with from just the data source you gives it, and it cites it. And
I
it
love the
actually,
citation.
and it's cool because the citation in this case, it's a blog post, but the blog post will contain a link to the content. Like, hey, in this exercise, I used chat CSV. So it actually pulls through the links. So you can actually click on the link from the content inside like it's inception to
Yeah,
whatever length. But again, the idea is that you have the ability to bring this content through. I think the main reason this tool exists is for studying. And you can tell that by you can create things like a study guide,
for sure.
FAQs, a brief document, and then timeline. In this particular case, the timeline, I've created all of them here, you can see, is not necessarily super helpful because it's just, talking about the content in there. But imagine if you're, reviewing the invention of television, it would give you a thorough timeline of when things happen throughout the whole piece. And there's quite in depth, including things like cast of characters and who was involved. And it gives you that ability to get into all that content. And when you click create a site guide, FAQ, these are generated in less than a minute, 30 seconds, very
That's so
quick.
fast. That's awesome.
So it's an incredibly helpful tool. You can share, simply click a link and you can share this with someone else to review it. But the piece that we're really here to talk about today is the fact that it actually creates a podcast. And the podcast here has already been created, but if it was a new content, you would hit generate or create. I can't remember exactly what it says.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, reviewing all the content and creating the podcast took probably 3 to 4 minutes for it to do.
Okay. And how much control did you have over the presenters? Like who's doing the podcast? Did you have control
None,
over that? None? It just kind of did it? Okay.
none. You just do it. And so if I just go back to and hit
And it
create
was two
new,
people, correct, on the podcast talking?
correct. So when you can sort of see here, if you're still following along in there, I went to create a new notebook, and you can see that it has audio overview, and it says deep dive conversation, 2 hosts, English only.
Oh,
So you
cool.
don't have control over the way it's done. But essentially what it creates when you hit generate is it creates a, I don't know, NPR or a conversational podcast with a male and a female host, and they take turns. One will ask questions and one will, give you content, but neither pretends to be the subject matter expert on whatever you're talking about. They always defer to the source, whether that's a
Mm-hmm.
podcast, the blog, whatever,
For
to give you
sure.
information. So it's a really cool way to do that. And one of the latest things, and this is very new and it still says in beta, but interactive mode. And so what this will actually allow you to do, and let's play deadly with a live demo during a live demo. Can you hear that, John?
No, I don't know if it shared audio.
All right. So if you share the audio, and I don't have shared audio on, so I'm not going to play with that, but basically it plays the podcast. But if you go into interactive mode, what it will do, you'll see it'll pop up and ask to access your microphone. And then basically it will start playing the podcast from the beginning once you hit play. And then at any stage during the podcast, if you want to ask a question, you can click join.
Oh, wow.
And then it says, oh, wait, our guest is joining. Do you have a question? Yes. What are your thoughts of the 100 Days of AI? It'll think. I had to wait for it to stop listening. And then it'll say, hey, yeah, we're getting started. We'll answer the question. And it will
Oh, cool.
fill it in.
That's interesting. And that's going to be part of the podcast now, is that discussion that you asked.
If we went through to completion, it would finish that. So,
Okay.
and basically, and that's exactly right. So if you were doing this as a shared moment, I don't think it's going to edit the original podcast, but it's more like it was, instead of being a podcast, it's a webinar or meeting,
Oh,
because
weird.
you can have interactions with that. So it
That's
doesn't
so strange.
necessarily change the content, but it will pause the content, have an interaction with you, and then say, okay, let's get back to the content, and then start the content again.
So
So again,
crazy.
imagine if you're using this as a way to study, for example, and I shared it with you, John, and you
Yeah.
had no understanding of the content, you could ask questions to it the same way you would ask questions to it in the chat.
Very
So
cool.
it is a very cool tool. Anyone that has access to a Google account, you do need a Google account to get in, can access it. And the other thing is that, well, it's not ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever you have. It acts very similar. And because it's meant to be a studying guide or a learning resource, you get lots more bandwidth, I guess is a way to say it. You're not limited to how much you can copy and paste. I mean, there is limits, but the limits are much bigger than, say, how much text you can put in
For
ChatGPT, for
sure.
example.
Yeah, I mean, a use case that I think of immediately is like an hour-long YouTube video of someone, and in that video they had a recipe somewhere. Watching that video over and over is kind of a pain sometimes, so maybe you can extract like the recipe real quick because that's all you're interested in. Maybe you already watched the video and you want like a bulleted list item of ingredients or something. So I could see that being really useful too, just even for yanking that piece of data that you need from like a video.
It,
Working on
it's
videos is really cool.
well, and exactly, and the fact that you don't have to. I've seen similar things. There are other tools that do something similar, not as well as this. And in those tools, you had to first somehow extract the transcript from YouTube.
Hmm.
This does it all. It's all included. It all does it all for you.
Very
And
cool.
and I think the cool thing is that you can get that transcript. You still have to read that transcript, and the transcript is word for word. Well, the guest word for word that YouTube has. The difference with this podcast version, is that you get some personality. They have banter. There's back and forth. They
Yeah.
throw in jokes. So
Well,
it feels more like you're listening to your favorite podcast, which would be
it's
Wrenches, Gadgets,
interesting.
and Hacks.
There you go. Yeah, it's interesting hearing them go back and forth when I listen to it, and they're like, "Yeah, check out what this guy did. It's really interesting what he did. He did this," and it's like, whoa, like it's not just reading a transcript monotone. It's very like back and forth, kind of having fun with it almost, which I thought was interesting. And then your name being Carl, it didn't know that from your post, so it just kept saying the BIM cider the whole time, which I thought was funny too.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. But at the same time, like you mentioned, it has a little back and forth. It is only referring to the content you give it. So in this case, we've got what we've shared here. Um, but it will also make, I don't know, do we call them hallucinations?
Oh
Um,
yeah,
when testing the example of having the podcast and interacting with it, I asked it a question about the benefits of micro learning. Um, and the male participant said yes, that it has great value, and sort of regurgitated in its own way things that I had said about what makes it good. But then
yeah,
it said, for example, I have this app on my phone that I use to learn different languages, and I just learn them in small, and it went through this whole use case for using an app that we know it
not
didn't
part of your
use.
content.
Yeah, it's not part of my content, doesn't exist, but it's very common for people to use apps like that, and so
Yeah,
it made that hallucination, but it was helpful in this context. So
thankfully a helpful one.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Very cool. That's awesome.
So yes, so that's really what's going on here, folks and listeners. I know we've been away for a bit. We did the 2024 season. We're thinking about what we can do for 2025, but we thought this April Fool's edition was certainly worth having. We were being replaced by some better sounding voice actors, if you will, and that take a chance to talk about this great tool, NotebookLM.
For sure.
So be sure to stay tuned for more to come. What that is, we don't know yet, but we haven't been overtaken by the overlords. And with that in mind, let's bring this plane in for a landing. We want to thank you for enjoying another episode of Wrenches, Gadgets, and Hacks, where we explore tools, technologies, and those time-saving hacks that are shaping the future. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe. Again, button down here somewhere. To stay tuned for more insights in the exciting world of AECO and technology. Until next time, keep building, innovating, and exploring the possibilities.
Thank you.